This is a multilingual environment, as we've seen, but I'm going to now use a word that my guess is not going to be immediately understood, so I will explain it. That word is mensch. A mensch is a Yiddish word, and a mensch is somebody who is salt of the earth. I see Guy Mentel laughing over there. You know what a mensch is. I am about to introduce a man whom, for me, is a Latin American mensch. Many, many years ago, Michael Shifter invited me when I was the junior desk officer in the State Department for El Salvador. And he said, John, I want you to come over here because we've got Joaquin Villalobos who's going to be speaking. And I think it'd be useful if you came. And I said to him, Michael, I'm an old Marine. In the 1980s, he was a guerrilla and I was a Marine. I'm not sure that's going to work. And Michael said to me, what, are you kidding me? Of course it's going to work. You're at the dialogue. Michael, I consider myself a friend of the dialogue because of you. And I know everybody here knows how much you've done for the Inter-American dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a warm welcome for a mensch, a great guy, Michael Shifter.
Mensch that misplaces. I have it. I'm sorry. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, John, for those very generous words. It's great to be here, and I first want to thank Rebecca so much for including me in this fabulous Gala program. I really feel privileged to be part of it and to see so many good friends. I'm really, for many reasons, I'm deeply honored to introduce Maria Arana. Marie is not only a friend, but she's been a real inspiration. Born to a Peruvian father and an American mother, she's a national treasure in both countries. But she's more than that. She is truly a citizen of the Americas, a cultural ambassador. Her remarkable body of work, boundless curiosity, and rare sensibilities transcend national boundaries and embody what it means to be genuinely cross-cultural. For many years, I have admired Marie's extraordinary oeuvre. Is that how you pronounce it, oeuvre? Oeuvre. Her work, her superb books, her essays, her articles and scripts, all of them beautifully written. I became familiar with Marie when for over a decade she was a masterful editor-in-chief of Book World, the book review section of the Washington Post. From there, she forged a fruitful partnership with the Library of Congress to host a national book festival on the Mall. Marie has held a number of distinguished positions with the Library of Congress, where she has been library director. She has also directed cultural events at the Kennedy Center and recently appeared on the PBS program History with David Rubenstein. 8 years ago, as chair of the Cultures of the Countries of the South at the Library of Congress, Marie engaged in a memorable conversation with Mario Vargas Llosa, Nobel laureate, Peru's greatest writer, and long-term dialogue member, as he received the Living Legend Award. I sat there in awe and listened to two literary stars having a sophisticated, stimulating exchange about influential novelists and what it means to be a writer. Both of them, Mario and Marie, spoke with great conviction about the fundamental role literary culture plays in fostering a vibrant civic life and robust democratic society. I found the Peruvian connection between them very compelling. Living in Lima in the late 1980s and early 1990s had a profound effect on me. Having Peru in my heart has enriched my friendship with Marie. Of course, our shared passion for pisco sours has also helped our friendship. 5 years ago, the Dialogue was honored to host a special event featuring Marie's creative, powerful, and historically based book, Silver Sword and Stone, Three Crucibles in the Latin American Story. Some of Marie's books have been more personal and deal with questions of identity. American Chica illuminates her experience as a Latina in the United States, and other works of hers explore her Peruvian roots. Her most recent book, Latino Land, a portrait of America's largest and least understood minority, highlights the history and diversity of the Latinos in the United States. It could not have come at a better time. All of Marie's books have been widely recognized, and she has received many awards and honors from the most prestigious organizations. Unfortunately, because of limited time, I can't name them all tonight. But the Dialogue's Distinguished Leadership for the Americas Award for contributions to literature and inter-American understanding might best encapsulate her many gifts, her prodigious accomplishments, and her rich legacy. This award represents the core purpose of the Dialogue and what animated and motivated its founders over 4 decades ago. Marie is the ideal recipient of this unique award at a moment when deeper inter-American understanding is more urgent than ever. It also takes place in this perfect venue, La Casa de las Americas. So please, whether you have Chilean wine or a pisco sour, join me in un brindis por Marie. Muchas felicitaciones, Marie. Muy merecido, muy merecido.
Yes, he is a mensch, absolute mensch. What a wonderful friend. To be introduced by Michael is more than a thrill. It's a huge honor. Thank you, Michael, for that. Thank you so much. Muy buenas noches, señoras y señores. President Bachelet, President Chinchilla, Inter-American Dialogue President Rebecca Bill Chavez, Ambassador Shannon, John Finney, thank you all. Muchas gracias. What an honor to be standing here at a gala celebrating an institution I admire so much, an institution that informs, connects, and addresses the hemisphere's toughest questions, and then betters the outcomes for all. I've known the Inter-American Dialogue for decades, since its earliest days. The best ambassador I knew, of course, was Michael Shifter. I've seen it grow from an organization committed to bringing players to the table to an institution that sees those players walk away better informed, better prepared to understand that though the many Americas may have distinct roots and histories, we have mutual goals, and we must find ways to achieve them. I was born, as Michael said, a child of the Americas North and South, media peruana, media estadounidense, acutely aware that I had ties and obligations to both patrias. I had the good fortune to learn from my parents that I had much to be proud on both sides. When I left Peru, my birthland, I was 8 years old, hardly a formed human being. But as Gabriel Garcia Marquez once said, all you need to know, you learned by the time you were 8. Coming to America in the era of the 60s, I learned a few more things. I learned that no one in the small town of New Jersey where we lived was interested in where I had come from. No one seemed to care about Latin America or anything this little 8-year-old might know. There were no other Hispanics that I could see in this new world, apart from my own family. Later, my university classmates didn't seem to care. They never asked what Peru was like or what it had been like to come as an immigrant to this other side of the Americas. Even later, working in New York in the publishing industry in the 1980s as a vice president in 2 major publishing houses, I could see that the media were patently blind to the country's increasing Hispanicity, to the rich stories that Latinos might tell, or the stunningly eye-opening works that they might write. Whenever I suggested a Latin American subject, they said there was no market for it. The entire communications industry in this country seemed numb to our growing population, clueless about the rapidly changing face of the country. By the time I began work at the Washington Post in the 1990s, things had begun to change. A glimmer of collective awareness had begun. After half a century of Latin American infusions, the face of the country had grown to look more like yours or mine. That was when I understood that I had to write about these changes, shine a bright light on who we were, where we had come from, what our culture consisted of, and what it meant to the greater population of the United States. I began to write about Latin America's history, its heroes, its problems, its potential. It became a mission to educate my fellow United States citizens about the other half of the hemisphere, my hemisphere. I wrote many books and countless articles about my other America before it occurred to me that there was a muscular Latin American nation living beside me here in the United States. Within the course of my own lifetime, it had grown, burgeoned, exploded from 2.5 million people when I arrived to 65 million Latinos in this country. We were now the second largest nation of Spanish speakers in the world, second only to Mexico. If my former colleagues in New York publishing still thought that we were not a viable market, they were painfully wrong. We American Latinos had become a massive marketplace. We now represented the 5th largest economy in the world, the 5th largest GDP on the planet. We had become a population with an annual buying power of almost $4 trillion a year. And yet, so very few seem to know that our history as Latinos was not a recent phenomenon, that it reached back to before the English pilgrims arrived on these shores, that we, even our women, had fought in every war that was ever prosecuted in this country, that George Washington had even thanked us for our part in the American Revolution, that our Latino scientists, artists, lawyers, soldiers, and business people built the US economy, fashioned its culture, defended its interests, and contributed to the country's innovations, that our laborers have laid the railroad tracks, paved the streets, constructed the cities, fed the people. That here in this American Latino land, which represents nearly 1/4 of the population of the United States, in this wildly diverse community of people, there lives a vibrant force, a veritable engine of the American future. One of the central messages I try to deliver in my most recent book, Latino Land, is that we are also a population that offers a clear bridge between the Americas, a glue that can help bind together a hemisphere that may seem to have different agendas, but in truth has a common purpose: neighborly cooperation. And so, American Latinos are very much a part of the work that all of you do. I want to thank the Inter-American Dialogue, and especially its leadership, Rebecca, and her board of directors and leadership council. I want to thank my co-awardee for that extraordinary and wonderful work and contribution that she is doing, and the dedication with which she does it. I want to thank the staff of the Inter-American Dialogue as well in its extraordinary work in forging cooperation between the nations of the Western Hemisphere, and for recognizing those of us who labor in the cultural fields, who try to add one more beam to the bridge of understanding. I'm deeply humbled and grateful to you for this award. Thank you for the recognition and the honor, and especially the signal to continue writing, to carry the torch one more step. Muchísimas gracias.
Ladies and gentlemen, I told you that this night was going to be a night of inspiration by some amazingly powerful and wonderful women leaders. I think we achieved that goal, and I want to thank our awardees. I want to thank President Chinchilla, President Bachelet. I want to thank everybody who came tonight to join with us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much.